Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we're going to talk about Westworld Season 1, Episode 7. It's called, and apologies for the pronunciation here, Trompe, which is French, and I looked this up. I was curious as to what this meant. It's French for optical illusion.
Very clever.
Yeah, very good. They had to put it in a different language so that we couldn't tell that it said optical illusion.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
that in and of itself is an illusion.
yeah. Sucks if you speak French, though, I guess.
If you speak French, you've got a long list of problems, and the name of this episode's at the bottom of that list.
That's true.
Apologies to any French people who watch our review,
Or Canadians.
or Canadians. But anyway, Westworld. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. Especially for this one. This is a big episode. And I think, first thing we have to talk about is Bernard. We have to talk about what is the main plot of this episode. And it's funny because there's something that I forgot to mention on last week's review that had been just sort of, in the back of my mind, like chipping away at it. Remember when he finds the cottage? And it was the way that Ford just kind of like Batmaned into the scene. And we may have mentioned that he did that. I can't remember if we did or not, but it was just, I think, everyone at some point or others, maybe thought of are some of the workers' hosts. And certainly people have suggested, or maybe Bernard's one. I don't think people were necessarily calling it because people were suggesting just about everyone was a host.
He was the one that I'd seen most, though.
Sure, but people had been speculating everyone, Elsie, Ford, everyone. Everyone had been guessed at some point, so it almost doesn't really count. It's just whatever. But that was in the back of my head, and I was thinking, well, now I don't actually think this is exactly the explanation, but it did occur to me that maybe the explanation for that, his sudden appearance, was that if Ford froze time for him, if he has a host and he got his time frozen, and then he turned back on, that would be how it appears to him, that he just appeared.
That's true.
So that was something that was in my head. Which is why when this episode started, and we started with Bernard, we have this scene with his son, and then he wakes up from that, I immediately went, he's a host.
Yeah, it was like you say, it's something that's been in the back of my mind for a few episodes, because people have been mentioning it so much. And then as soon as you see it start on him, it's like, okay, I'm fairly sure.
No, I was positive, because every time...
Well, see, I was considering it was a misdirect.
Because every single time we've seen someone wake up at the start of an episode, they've always been a host.
I agree, but that's why I was considering that maybe it was a misdirect.
So I was positive. I was all in at this point. And of course, throughout the episode, we have this plot of Charlotte, who's from the Delos company, and we have her sort of having this meeting with Teresa, and Hector's there as a sex doll, all paused over in the bed.
Yep.
Which I can only imagine at this point is something that Ford is using to spy on people, because he's there and he's absorbing information.
That's true.
So that's certainly something that I think is relevant. But
it also amuses me that she gets the special privileges of it, though, because they've mentioned how it's like a thing where they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But she's just like, nah, I'm the boss here.
Yeah. Well, it all leads, of course, to this scene where they put on this demonstration, and even her and Teresa talk about how they're almost going to make something look worse than it is to force Ford out of the company, to force his control away from the park. If something violent happens, and I was almost thinking they were actually going to harm someone, in the park, actually harm a civilian, or civilian's not the right word, a guest in the park. Yeah. And it turns out, no, they did this other thing where they brought in Clementine and they'd altered her code to put on this display where if she'll still act out in violence against a human. And this scene was one of several standout scenes in this episode, because the acting from everyone was phenomenal, and the sort of slow realisation from Bernard that he's getting fired, and then she actually says you're fired. And it's a giant power play from her. Teresa's looking really awkward and can't even look at him. But Anthony Hopkins in this scene, and obviously it makes more sense at the end of the episode, but his face in the entire scene is, I know what you're pulling, and it's not flying. I know exactly what's... It's it doesn't matter how much Charlotte thinks she's in control. Anthony Hopkins, Ford, for the duration of that scene, knows he's got the biggest dick in the room.
There's this thing they've been doing, where they're in the host mode. They've been like perfectly still. I think it's touched up with like CGI to make the reactions just perfectly still and like stuff like that.
Yeah, they have to touch up a little bit.
Yeah,
It's impossible.
I almost feel like they might have done something to Hopkins in this scene just to keep his face like the exact same throughout because it never changed.
Nah, you could see his eyes moving. So I mean, maybe, but like, it just because it's almost like. It was the first time in this show when I was actually getting legit Hannibal Lecter vibes from him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the fact that it was all glass, like, walls that were adding to it, but it was just, like, it's this look of, like, I'm almost convinced he might start killing people in a minute. Like, he's, like, someone's trying to take his part from him. But, you get this sense that he is completely in control. He knows what's going on. He's sussed their game. And obviously, it's confirmed a few scenes later when Bernard comes to talk to Teresa, and he actually says, yeah, this didn't even fly for me. I could tell that this had been engineered, so who knows what Ford was thinking. I'm like, yeah, that's what I was thinking the entire time. Ford's got so much, gears churning in there. Oh, dear. But, no, but of course it leads to him, because he doesn't tell Teresa about what he finds out last episode, that Teresa's the one uploading something from the host, and we still don't know what happened to Elsie.
No, we don't.
We know that whatever's happened to her, someone in the company's covering it up. Because they've put her on vacation or away days.
Yeah.
So, but Bernard,
someone with access,
yeah, all very important. We can theorize about that in a minute, but I feel like we can't theorize about anything else until we talk about
the end
of
this
this one.
other way.
So Bernard takes her out to the cottage, and I think like all throughout, like everything's been like really intriguing and like. The acting from both of these people has been fantastic. But of course he describes this idea that a host can't see something if they're not supposed to. Like it'll actually, and it goes with the title of the episode, that it's like an optical illusion. They won't see something if it's harmful to them or harmful to their programming because it won't jive,
Yeah. It's the same thing that we've had where, where they've been talking with Dolores, he says, you're not supposed to hear that. Like, talking about the outside world. It's those things.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the exact same thing. But it's felt like it answers how Ford could just come in, like he did last time, because we see that the door was right there. But even the way when he comes into this scene, you don't see the door, right? It's actually not there in the scene until it flips, and it's Teresa actually says, what's behind this door? And then he says the words. Even though at the start of the episode I'd already decided it, I'd already figured it out. I was like, he is a host, right? But when he says the words, "What door?" you're like,
that's the moment.
Oh crap! Like your heart just sinks because this is them confirming it, and it's one of these things where you almost feel like it's intentional that you know.
Yeah, there was a few moments throughout this episode where they were playing with it as well. Like when him and Teresa were talking near the start, and she goes, "Oh, you're practicing for your conversations with the hosts," and it's very reminiscent of the way he talks with Dolores.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I've got some thoughts on that.
Well, I just mean the situation, the way it plays.
Yeah.
It's like reminiscent of those conversations. That's all.
Got some thoughts on that. But so they go downstairs, right? They go downstairs and there's like a host printing machine, like, working away. And it's like a secret place. And it's funny that Bernard kind of, even though, like, once he's in past the door, he can still see what's in there and he can still talk about what this is, because he even says this is like one of several stations that are all over the park. He didn't know this one was here, but like this is similar to other ones. And she goes over and starts looking at things, and we see like the blueprint for Dolores. It says Dolores prototype, and of course we're already thinking that he's a host. We know what she's going to find. Yeah. She's going to find him, and she does, and she's like, "What's this?" And he says, "Doesn't look like anything to me," which was set up perfectly halfway through the episode.
It was so perfect where he was doing the awareness test and he's showing the images of the outside world. And he says, "Doesn't look like anything to me."
Yeah, and it's just, and again, it's already been confirmed. He already said the thing about the door, and yet this still made my heart go, "Oh crap!" Like,
yeah,
it's just the execution is so good that every beat of it was like just so impactful, and that's when Ford basically wanders into the scene, and Anthony Hopkins, of course, is a great actor, but I feel like this is the episode where he finally got to show his chops and he finally got to let loose.
Yeah, it's been a while because I feel like a lot of the show he's just kind of been on the edge. He's been on the fringe. It's like it was interesting that they cast such a big name for what up till now has been relatively, smallish parts.
So he comes in and he openly starts talking about it. He's not meant to see things that is harmful to his programming. And the moment I love here is when Bernard starts acting confused, which, by the way, again, talking about the acting, is when he's talking to Teresa about this, if you pay attention to Bernard, he has this really awkward thing where he doesn't know where to look. And he's not sure what to do. It's like something's not computing quite right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you almost don't even notice it because you're so focused on the conversation, but it's happening, and I noticed because I confess, I watched this scene twice. I went back and watched the last 5 minutes again because there was so much in it. I wanted to make sure I got a lot of it. After this, I also went back to 2 previous episodes and checked things, which I'll bring up in a minute because they're relevant.
All right.
But yeah, but the moment I love so much is when Ford says, "Right, that's enough, Bernard," and he pauses him, and Bernard does the pause, which again, we've had it confirmed twice now, 3 times technically if you include him just talking about it. Like, it's been confirmed multiple times he's a host, but the moment he freezes, it's like, oh shit. Like, but the best part about it is Teresa's reaction to it, because she's already called Ford a monster. She already knows what's going on. But when he freezes and she sees it, she sees like the actual evidence that he is not human, and she's been having a relationship with him. She's been doing all this with it, and like her reaction to this, the shock and horror on her face. She didn't even say anything. It's just the horror on her face. So well done.
It's the same way it affects us because even though, like you said, we've seen everything the same way she has, but you could still talk your way out of most of it. Like, oh, there's a plan here, but it could be just for a copy. Like, it could be modelled on him because we've seen like the family is modelled on Ford's family.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
There's things where you could talk your way out of it until that moment where it's like, nope, this is it.
Yeah, and then they get into it, and Ford like talks about how every so often Delos will start to like complain, or someone will start to uncover what's really going on. That he has these secret posts, and that maybe he's got too much power, and they try to take it from him. And that's when he says something that really piqued my interest, because he repeats a line that Charlotte said in the scene when Teresa went to speak to her about how to reset things, there's a blood sacrifice, unfortunately, must happen. And I think you could read into this 2 ways. One is the more obvious and straightforward way, is that, Hector was in the room and he's heard this conversation, so he's throwing that line back in her face to show, I am playing God.
Yeah,
I hear
I'm
everything.
everywhere.
Yeah, I hear everything. I know about this. And this is the same kind of idea, but even perhaps a bigger deal than that. And it depends, because I'm not sure if Charlotte acts the way that I would like. I feel like Charlotte trying to make the power play earlier on goes against this, but part of me also suspected that maybe she's also a host, and the idea is that Ford has also infiltrated like the board with a host, because he says that line, like because she said that as well. I know the first one's more likely, but I think that's also an interesting idea to stew over.
Yeah, I think the first one's more like just the idea that they're both playing the same game, essentially.
Yeah. But he's winning.
Well, yeah.
He's definitely winning at this point. But she, and she tries to call out. She tries to use her phone to get out, and he's like, "I told you, I built all of this."
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you thought it was like, because we mentioned how it was kind of scary in that, like, that scene they had a couple of episodes ago on, like, where she came as a kid in the dinner table. And this was just like that turned up to 11.
Yeah.
And he just like turns and tells Bernard to kill her. And this shows again that his secret hosts don't have the same, rules, the same programming that the rest of them do. Like, they have a more advanced programming that does allow them to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't have the same restrictions as others.
And it was making me think, though, if Teresa was the one behind the alternate programming that was sending out the signals, maybe that wasn't. Maybe that was just for them to like try and like because Charlotte talks about how the company, like, it's not really interested in like the tourist side of things. It's more about analyzing the data as if it's one big experiment. And because it's a company, I'm thinking, like, is this purely like for commercial? It's like they're trying to analyze people's behavior. Like, so if they react like this here, if this is where their violent tendencies come out, if this is what turns them on, and so on. Like, it could all just be about advertising. I don't know. I don't know if it's more
So I just
sinister.
got the impression that I was a bit more base level, where because she's talking about the code and that's the IP. I think just as the AI aspect of things, but they have applications that they want to apply that to. That's
Maybe.
more than just a theme park. They want to expand that into more day-to-day uses.
It was because she had a line about it was something along the lines of there's like 35 years of experiment data here
Yeah.
that's just sitting here that no one's allowed to look at. And I took that as more of a them wanting to use that so they can manipulate people better.
See, that's possible because I just thought maybe experiment data as in all the data they've got on AI and the hosts and like the way it functions and what it's built to and
Yeah, no, I can see it. I mean that might just be part of it as well. It's just that because the show's so much about finding your, and we'll get to William and Dolores later, but so much of that was about finding who you really are and all that.
No, it works both ways. It could have been either.
Yeah. So to go back to this final scene, because there's so much to unpack in it. So Bernard kills Teresa, and it's very horrifying because he just turns him into a killer robot at his command. It's like, snap of the fingers, it kills her. Which, by the way, that host that's getting built, that is so the replacement for Teresa.
Oh, I'm down for that because it was the way it's shot where, as she's being killed, we're actually focusing on the new host. It's like this is the cycle because everything about this show is cyclical and it's all loops.
Yeah, and it also leads into like, okay, sure, he says that it was Teresa's idea to have the relationship, but like, did he let Bernard go along with it because we can analyze her so that our responses are more natural to what she would have done, like, so the host will have the data that he's collected by being with her in all these different situations.
Because the difference is with Bernard, he's always been a host, and so he's never had to, fool. Like, he had to fool into thinking he was human, sure, but this host has got to fool someone into thinking that it's actually her, not just that it's a person. It's got to be a specific person.
Yeah, but of course we don't know if Ford has done this to other people. Like,
no, we don't.
And it does lead us to the speculation of who Bernard really is, because when she looks at that blueprint, you don't see his name. The camera conveniently is above where the name is. You don't get to see it.
Yeah.
And I think the popular speculation would probably be that he is actually based on Arnold.
That's the obvious go-to, isn't it?
I've got evidence for you, though.
Okay, go on.
Remember when I said I went back to a couple of episodes to check some things?
Sure.
This was two things here. One was this whole idea of not seeing things that they're not supposed to. I went back to episode... I actually went through like 3 episodes looking for this scene because I couldn't remember which one it was in. I think it was episode 2 when I ultimately found it. It's when we first hear the backstory of Arnold, and Ford hands Bernard a photograph of himself and another man, and he talks like this was his partner, right? And he hands him it. And this other person in the photograph isn't Bernard, doesn't look anything like Bernard. But when you look at now, assuming that this is from Bernard's perspective, which it would be if you want to trick the audience.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing with the door. The door wasn't there until it switched to Teresa's viewpoint on it. If you look at the photograph, yes, there's Ford. There's a man in the middle, but they're both off to the side. Like there's enough space for another person.
Yeah, is there?
It's clearly framed as if there was 3 people, and there's one person just not there.
Look at that.
So if he's programmed not to see pictures of himself, because it would, you know.
Yeah. I'd say I'd go and watch the episode again and find it, but I'm just gonna go to Reddit because I'm sure someone's already posted it there for me.
Probably. And the other big bit of evidence, and this gets into timey-wimey stuff. You like this?
Okay.
So the scenes which were in episode 2 or 3 of Bernard talking to Dolores. He's having these secret meetings with Dolores.
Right.
And he's asking her questions about things that are going on, about our nature of humanity, and he's saying to her, don't tell anyone about these conversations, and all that. those take place in this room.
Do they?
The machine's not there, but it's the same room. It's the same glass box. There's a staircase behind him. Now, you could write this off, as he does say there's multiple places like this in
That's
the
what
park.
I was just about to say. Yeah.
However, I am of the belief that this is actually Arnold and not Bernard. And this is in the past, when she was first built.
Okay, I can see why.
Firstly, because it's just really interesting, if that's the case.
That would also add a new dynamic to, when Ford speaks to Laura, it's like, when's the last time you spoke to Arnold? It would be those conversations, not...
Yeah, and she wouldn't be lying about it.
Yeah.
Because when she said it was like, however many hundreds and hundreds of days,
Yeah.
it would be accurate, because it was that long ago. But the other reason why I think this holds a lot of weight is because think about the questions that Bernard was asking in those scenes and his interest and the way he seemed to want her to be like more sentient, which is what we know from Ford is that was Arnold's thing.
Arnold wanted, yeah.
Has Bernard shown that interest in any other time in the show other than those scenes with Dolores?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that was the other thing. So
that's also a thing, because obviously you could say, oh, well, people know, but no one knows who Arnold was. No one even barely knew he existed.
Yeah, because Logan said he don't even know his name. Ford, in the scene where he talks about him, says he was white from history. The company didn't want him to know about him.
Yeah.
So he could be.
Yeah. No, it's the most obvious thing. I do have a question about this, him being a host. So obviously he has the memories of the wife and kid, and you go, sure, they're implanted. Yeah, we've seen that countless times.
Or possibly it could actually be Arnold's real wife and kid.
All
like the history could still be accurate. It's just that.
Right.
Yeah.
But like either way, that I'm not questioning that. We saw him speak to his wife.
Oh, she's another host.
Could be, yeah. I'm just genuinely curious, because it's like, how does that play off?
I think that's part of like Ford convincing him he's human. Like, because if he couldn't do that, then it would be kind of obvious to him, would it not? Well, maybe not obvious.
I mean, would it? I mean, because you just go, there'd be countless ways around it. Surely, you go, oh, no phone signal. She was in an accident or something. Anything.
Maybe.
But he lets her speak to her.
Well, I'm assuming she's not real. Like, I'm assuming she's a host as well, or because if it's it couldn't be the real wife, because she would be Anthony Hopkins' age, and she would be like, "Why are you still this young?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the reason behind it is I think unlike the other hosts, he has to pass off for human to everyone else, like other human beings who work with these hosts day in and day out, but they can't tell that he's a host. So to achieve that, he has to have all these extra human interactions that fill out the story, fill out the backstory and the experience, and
Alright, I buy it.
So yeah, that's my thought there.
I do like the idea of him being Arnold, though, because it explains why Ford has him as his like protege, essentially, like him as his partner in crime. Not just that he was controlling him, but like, because from before we knew it was a host, it was played as if he was his successor, like the heir apparent.
Yeah,
and that all makes sense for it to be Arnold in that case. There's no other logical conclusion, I don't think.
But the idea that these scenes with Dolores are actually further back in the timeline, which even if you don't buy the whole William as the Man in Black thing, and we'll talk a bit more about that later, I'm firmly of the belief now there's at least two timelines going on.
Yeah.
In some capacity, there's at least, if nothing in the park is, at least those scenes are. I feel like.
I agree. That said, I feel like there was some of the William stuff this week that gave further credence to it.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I agree. We'll talk about that. There was one line of dialogue in particular that sent my alarm.
There was. It might be the same line, probably.
Yeah, probably. Oh dear. I feel there was something else in this final scene I wanted to talk about, and we've went down this rabbit hole of.
Sorry about that.
Maybe it was Delos related and what Delos actually wanted to do. I can't remember. But
we'll move on if you remember it.
Yeah, we can come back. But no, that final 10 minutes was like, And the fact is this episode already had like several scenes that I thought were including the one with Clementine when they were doing the whole test. I thought that was a standout scene for several reasons, acting included, music included, all that. Same with this final 10 minutes. Let's go to Maeve. I want to talk about Maeve because first of all, something as simple as her doing her daily morning routine but shutting the piano at the end
Yeah.
was just a nice touch of something's different. Like she's more self-aware. I mean, knows that she's smarter. She got them to turn up her intelligence. But first standout scene with her, there was two with her, but the first one that really stood out for her was her pretending to be still when the techies like turned everyone on pause.
Yeah.
That was like stunningly suspenseful.
It was, and the idea that because she and we assumed they were coming for her.
Yeah.
And just when she picks up the knife ready, it's like, okay, if you see her like that, you still buy that she just had the knife in her hand.
Yeah.
When you froze it, but she's ready. That's terrifying.
Well, see, this thing is it? But I'm on her side though, kinda like.
Yeah,
You
I get that.
Even though these guys are just doing their job, I'm kind of on her side. Like her entire world's like a cage. She's.
Yeah, and from her perspective, these masked men come in and take someone away. That's that's pretty scary.
But the great thing is that it's not even like just a cheap like thing to give you the red herring. It's because it's actually connects to the other plot where they're using her, saying that she's doing this bad stuff. So it ties in. It doesn't just feel like a cheap. Oh, we'll do this to make you think they're going for her, but they're actually going for her. It's like it actually has a reason, which is cool. But then of course she wakes up, and I love that the lab tech guy's like, look, you keep coming down here. Like, people are going to start noticing how often you're visiting the.
Yeah, it was 24 hours later, he said.
Yeah. But she makes him take her to where Clementine is. And what I loved about this is we see Teresa, we see Bernard in this scene. Like, it feels like these characters have been so separate from everything else that the idea that we see these other main characters walking past, because these tech guys are kind of minor. They're important because of Maeve, but they're not important in the grand scheme of things.
Not to the company, they're not. They're just maybe the other one. Because he's the one performing this stuff on Clementine.
Yeah. But the idea that she has to stand there and watch as her friend is lobotomized, basically.
Yeah.
Really effective. Really, really effective.
Yeah, it is.
And even better than that is those him trying to explain to her that he had no choice and he had to do it.
When you just see her saying nothing the whole time, just watching him.
Yeah. But probably my favourite line of dialogue from the episode is after he tries to explain, and Thandie Newton, again, the acting in this show is phenomenal, and Thandie Newton...
I feel like I know what line this is going to be.
It's when she says she's died 1,000 times. How many times have you died? When she's threatening him. That line is terrifying.
Yeah. There's another line as well in there where she says, when I first came here, I thought you were gods, but you're just men, and I know how to deal with men. And it's like, oh, she's so in control right now. It's scary.
Yeah, that line about how many times have you died, it was so like, I'm not scared of death. I do it all the time. Like,
yeah.
But you've only got one.
Yeah. And
I will kill you. Which sets up a really exciting plot. If she's going to try and get them to jailbreak her out of the building, that's the. I mean, what if that's like part of season 2 is that she's actually on the outside and we follow her in the real world whilst other stuff's going on.
That would be interesting.
I don't know if they'll do that, but they might. I mean, I'd question if the show could afford it, but then again, every week I am in shock and awe.
Even this, like, the scene where it's Dolores, she's still on the edge of the cliff looking down. Oh man,
there was that, but it was even just before we got to that when they're all riding the horses, and the camera just went to this aerial shot and pulled back, and I'm like, this is a TV show.
Yeah, it looks so impressive.
The TV shows don't get to do this. What?
Yeah. HBO just doesn't give a damn anymore. They're just throwing money at anything.
Well, they're getting cred from us for that. Because this show is it's gorgeous and it oofed. But yeah, everything with Maeve has been really interesting ever since that first glimmer of like realizing stuff. Really, really, and it does actually like bring it back to Ford. It's like, well, we thought he was dead set against them like becoming sentient, But I'm wondering, has he had a change of heart in all this time? Is this why he's initiating all this new stuff? Is because he wants to eventually realize Arnold's vision, or
Could be.
does he want to bastardize it as like a act of defiance at the end? Kind of thing.
I think just, I mean, I don't want to go back to the idea that obviously he's Arnold, but the idea that he was obviously so conflicted with Arnold and he had these differences on, this major issue here, yet now he essentially has Arnold subservient to him and he can make him do what he wants.
Makes him feel
It's
more
such
powerful.
again, it adds to that God complex, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the funny thing is that this setting up Ford is this much of a villain where he's killing people and replacing them with hosts. In a weird way, it kind of makes Man in Black the hero.
It does.
Like if Man in Black's the one trying to take, because he suspects maybe not exactly what's going on, but if what he's looking for the real game, he suspects there's hosts in there that are more than what the regular ones are, and this kind of thing. Like if he's trying to expose this and get to the center of all this, if that's what he's actually trying to do, then it kind of makes him the hero, which is weird because when we first met him, he felt like such a villain in comparison.
Oh man, what if the center of the maze is the cottage?
It could be.
That'd be cool.
Very interesting. So let's go over to Dolores and William.
Yep.
So that's obviously we spend a lot of time with them in the train and they talk and we then get out of the train and whatever. But I think the key talking points here is the conversation they have in the middle of the episode, which is phenomenal. Again, I'm using that word a lot, but the episode was. This is probably the best episode of the show so far. Like it was.
Yeah, probably.
And there was no Man in Black, and that's astonishing to me.
Yeah.
But so she starts asking about what she wants and what he wants, and they go back and forth. And he's talking about this place, and he thought it was just a place for base level instincts and wants and needs, and he's like in the line he said that set my is he the Man in Black, and this is like the past setting off alarm bells. Was when he said, I kind of want to figure this place out now. Like, I want to know what this place is. And I'm like, that's sounding very Man in Black to me, that line right there.
There was another one as well, where, what's his name? Oh, God, I'm blanking. On the train
Lawrence.
with him. Lawrence, sorry. Says to him, oh, maybe you've got more of an appetite for this than you thought.
Yeah, because he also says you're quite proficient in killing people as well at one point. So there was those little hints, but I think just their relationship culminating there, and William basically saying that outside in the real world he's been faking it because he has to fake it to get by because you're expected to act a certain way, and he's this mild-mannered guy who doesn't do this and do that. And even the fact that he didn't want to kill people right away made him feel more of an outsider, made him feel like he was the weirdo, and coming in here and getting to be the hero is the first time he's actually felt like he's actually real.
Yeah.
It feels like he's really being him. And I thought that was a really interesting... Because it's kind of the opposite. Like, they're in the fake world. Like, this is pretend.
Yeah, I wonder if one of the things that, like breaks him and turns him into the Man in Black would be when Dolores doesn't remember him anymore. And he's formed... Obviously, we see him form this relationship, and obviously it takes a next level in this episode. But at the end of this, when the cycle resets and she gets her memory wiped and she doesn't remember him anymore and he's lost all of that might be something that turns him cynical. And, the reason where we saw him in the first episode with her and he didn't treat her exactly well.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's stuff to do with that.
Yeah. Assuming this is right, of course, this whole
Yeah.
timeline thing. But
It's... If you're going to theorize, you have to just assume that that's right.
Yeah, but of course she draws this out while he's sleeping after they've had sex, and he wakes up and she's drawing this mountains and river, and that's where we end up with them at the end of their story in this episode when they split from Lawrence, and they're going into I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's basically no man's land. Like no one's ever been there or no one's ever came back from there. It's uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Which makes me think maybe they are getting close to like a maze or something. Well, maybe not then. If he is the Man in Black and the Man in Black needs to find the maze, then I guess it would make sense that he hasn't actually been to the maze before. So.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense, would it?
Yeah. But, certainly intrigued to what they're out there. looking at, and I don't know if they're going to find the church that she's been having visions of, because clearly she had visions of this, this canyon, these mountains with a river.
I'd assume the church is downriver somewhere.
Yeah.
But
So I wonder if we'll get to that in the next episode. I don't know.
man, looking forward to it though.
It's funny how though the show has this weird pattern of it always has three plot. There's like four stories going on overall, but there's only ever three in one episode. So this episode had no Man in Black. Last week had no Dolores and William.
Yeah.
It seems to be sort of rotating which one it's kind of ignoring, episode to
Yeah.
episode, which isn't really a complaint or even a praise. It's just an observation.
I think it's well done because it never feels like there's too much packed into one episode. Even though we have so much, it doesn't feel like there's too much, and nothing gets shafted, and gets not enough time to do what it needs to on a week-to-week progression.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I feel like if we had the same amount of runtime, we'd have to sacrifice parts of every story to fit everything in, and you wouldn't get as much progression each week.
I agree.
So, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Where is Elsie?
I honestly don't know.
I don't think that she has been. I don't think she's been forwarded and hostized to make up two words.
I don't either, for the reason that Bernard was on the phone to her, and like he was nowhere. He wasn't involved with this. So I've seen some people saying, "Oh, like he must have been the one like behind it all." The way he took Teresa down to the cottage, he's kind of played her up to that. I don't buy that. I don't think, because he wasn't there, and she was the one investigating this alone. We saw that, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like Ford's MO just to take like her, like what, like Teresa. I can see the purpose. I'm not sure I can with Elsie.
Yeah, but it makes me interested in who did take her. Like, who was it? Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. We don't see much enough in that scene last week to have an idea. But I imagine we'll maybe find out next week.
Yeah, I think so. They can't leave it too long, can they?
Yeah, I'll think they will. But no, this was fantastic episode. Fantastic. Probably the best one yet. That final 10 minutes was exhilarating, and even then, like I said, there was already, the two scenes with Maeve, the scene where, even the scene where William and Dolores like end up kissing and having sex, like even that scene was so riveting from just a character perspective.
Yeah. And
like him realizing that he like pretends in the outside world, but in here doesn't feel like he has to do that.
Yeah.
So he never wants to leave. Like.
Yeah.
All of it was just riveting stuff. So. No, that's Westworld this week. Anything else you want to add in, Connor? Anything that I've glossed over or missed? Or
I really don't think we glossed over anything there.
Are you saying we rambled on too long? Is that what you're saying to me?
I'm saying we rambled on the exact amount of time this episode deserved.
Alright. I'm cool with that. That is Westworld. Let us know what you think of this episode. Give us some thoughts and theories about the characters and whatever. We would like to hear them. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. I'm flustered. Look, hear me, I'm flustered. I don't know what to say. Bye, guys.